Stephanie Chung, your go-to for all things marketing, mindset, and manifestation. I grew my online business from 0 to beyond 6 figures in 8 months. My purpose is to empower women to step into the highest, most aligned versions of themselves. If you are ready to take charge of your life, learn how to design a wildly successful business, and leave limiting beliefs behind, you've come to the right place. You will learn the actionable tips and step-by-step strategies on money, manifestation, and social media. It's time to step into your role as boss, to raise your vibration, and tap into your unlimited potential today. Welcome to the Social Reset Podcast. All right, everyone, welcome back to the podcast. This has been a long-awaited episode that I promised you all that I would record about my Magicmind launch and some lessons I've learned this year, but mainly the relaunch of my Mastermind and some things that I learned through launching, not just from that particular launch, but from launching all year. And gosh, I just have so much to share. So this is an episode you probably want to listen to more than one time. This is an episode you probably want to take notes while you're listening. And this is an episode that you're probably going to come back to over and over again, especially if you are stepping into launching yourself. So let's get into it. Let's talk about why I relaunched my Mastermind. What are the business lessons I learned in 2023? And what are some things that I want to share with you all around selling that I think is the most important when we go into launches, marketing, and showing up in our communities as leaders and leaders of movements? All right, let's get into it. So let's talk about the Magicmind launch. So Magicmind, for those who don't know, is my 6-month business mastermind container. This is a container for service providers, coaches, mentors. Essentially, if you are working with clients and you are looking to scale to 6 figures and multi 6 figures in a year, this is the mastermind to be in. This is my highest level. This is my highest container other than one-on-ones. And this is my most, like, my closest proximity container and cohort that I run in my business. So I spend a lot of my time with my Magicmind students. We have 3 calls every single month. We have focus group calls. We have some additional extra calls that I throw in there as well for them. We have a daily Slack workspace that is always running where people are asking for coaching, asking for feedback, sharing celebrations and wins, connecting with one another, doing peer coaching. It's a really great community and a really great space for any woman entrepreneur to step into and be transformed. I call it a portal. You are essentially stepping into a portal, and then you are coming out the other side as a completely changed person. And I'm always just so in awe of what my students are creating and what they're doing in their businesses and how they're shifting not just the revenue wins, right? Not just like the money milestones that they're achieving and 10K months and the sales rolling in, right? But also who they're becoming as leaders, right? How they're running their teams, how they're taking time for themselves to rest. It's a really beautiful space to be in and be surrounded by other entrepreneurs who are also navigating similar challenges. And then you also get to celebrate with them when they finally achieve something that they've been working so hard at, right? It's just such a beautiful place to be, especially when there's a lot of people around you, friends and family, who don't always necessarily understand what it is that you're doing. And so being a part of a mastermind it's not like having just one coach. It's not just me. It is being in a room of coaches and being in a room of women who are also spiritual, who are also witchy, who also care so deeply about the business that they're building and who they're becoming. And that is just such a beautiful beautiful space to be a part of, and it makes such a difference, and I can see it, I can feel it in my students businesses and how they're showing up. So I love Magic Mind, and Magic Mind has absolutely revolutionized, my own business. And not only that, but the practices, the processes that I teach inside Magic Mind is how I've built my own business, right? It's like looking inside the processes that I've created for my business here laid out for all of my students to be able to implement in their own businesses. And it's not just that, it is me personalizing and helping them create their own strategies and ways of showing up in their business that work for them, that work for their vision, that work for their goals, which is really, really important because we're not here to just be clones of one another. We're not just here to, create the same type of business and to create the same type of content and to show up in our businesses the same way. We all have a unique frequency, we all have a unique energetic coding in which we're meant to show up in our businesses, and that is what I bring out of every single one of my students personally, and to help them show up in their business in a way that aligns to their magic, which is ideally, the way that you would run your business. All right, so let's talk about this launch, and then we'll talk about the relaunch. And also, my voice is going to sound really hoarse. I am just getting over being sick. It is definitely sick season. So I'm going to sound real raspy, but hopefully it comes off really sexy. Okay, so this launch was my launch for the October, not October. Um, this was the launch for this was for the October 2023 round, and I launched it in September. So the official launch dates were, let's go back into my calendar. So the official launch dates were actually August 28th to September 1st. Okay. And then what's also really important to note here is I did an entire month-long event called 10K Anyway, that all throughout August. And what I did was I created a Facebook group and I did calls every Monday. So throughout all of the Mondays in August, which there was 4 of them total, I went on Zoom and I had a group of people who signed up and were a part of this amazing event. And I shared trainings on how to create 10K months every single Monday of August. So that was kind of my hype event, whatever you want to call it, my event leading into the launch of Magicmind. I always like to do some type of fun event where I can really get in front of people, offer tons of value, give them a taste of what it's like to work with me so that it is a easier decision so that they can really tap into their body and their intuition and see, is this the right container for me? Is this for me or not? And help them make a clear decision moving into applying for the mastermind, which is really important for me because I only ever want to work with people who are really excited about being a part of my containers and desire to be in my containers, right? That's a really big part of how I run my business and how I want to be approaching my sales. We talk a lot about sovereign, sexy sales in Magicmind. And this is one of the biggest ways in which I approach my sales is really only calling in my best clients, the ones who are ready, the ones who are resourced, the ones who are just excited to take things to the next level. So that's really what I did. I did a month-long event in August. I did those training calls every single Monday. And then I'll go into what I feel like I could have done better, but let me just give you the facts. So, opened up applications from August 28th to September 1st. And at that point, I had already had someone apply a couple of weeks before and pay in full to secure her spot. Um, During the application time, I believe I secured, I don't remember exactly the number of applications, but I remember there were at least 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. something around 6, 7 conversations I was having with people who were desiring to be a part of Magic. I think actually more than that. I think it was a little more than that. I was also working with someone one on one. And so we also had a call on the calendar to talk about moving into the mastermind instead of continuing one on ones, because one on ones are something that I wanted to kind of ease out. But now I'm thinking I might just take 1 or 2 one on one clients a year moving forward and just being really selective about that. So that's what that looked like. And then the point where I realized that, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? What's happening was at the end of the applications, which again was also me just being a little dramatic. But I hadn't even jumped on like the sales calls yet. But I finished the application process, right? Open enrollment was done. It was done September 1st. And I remember September 2nd, I was on my couch crying and I'd called one of my friends. And I asked her for peer coaching and I was just like, hey, do you have, are you able to hold space for me right now? And I just remember feeling so defeated and so disappointed and so discouraged by how the the launch had gone, because I think I even remember having some conversations that week, where yes, I had 2 calls that week where they had both said it's not the time. They were either going to join this round or next round, and then one of them said that she wasn't able to, she wasn't able to join this round. And so at the end of the week, I think, it was like the number of applications, and it was also the just kind of the energy I felt like was different than my other rounds. And I had this was the third time launching. This was the third time launching Magicmind. The first launch, I ended up with like 13, 14 applications. It was something crazy. And I got on calls with most of them. And I think I got on calls with all of them, but there were some that were just not able to move forward, some that weren't a good fit. Some that happens each round. There's like people who aren't a good fit. There are people who apply but don't move forward for some reason or another. And then there are, of course, the people who either want to join, are a good fit and they want to join and they're ready to join and they're debating whether or not to do this round or the round afterwards, right? Which that I think is one of the things that comes up when running a mastermind is when it's multiple rounds, and also with launches, right? If you're really relaunching a course over and over, you'll get this question of like, should I do it this round or should I do it next round? Should I do it the round after? Should I do it the round? So you have to kind of create content around that specifically on why, like, hey, why would you want to wait though? Right? Like you could do the next round, but don't you want to jump in and start accessing all of this incredible content, the curriculum, the past call replays, all of the bonuses that you get now, right? Don't you want to do that now and not wait on, okay, well, yes, there is a cohort opening next year, or there is a cohort app opening in another 6, 7 months, but that's 6, 7 months that you can be spending in a mastermind making money and completely changing the trajectory of your business. So by the time 7 months comes around and it's, 7 months into the year or whatever it might be, you have completely different goals. You have a completely different way of running your business. You might have a completely different team and systems and all of the things that you need to support you, right? You might be showing up in your business completely different because you're getting the mindset coaching and the support that you need in order to move into the the next phase of your business, right? There's so much that can happen in a mere 6 months. And especially if you're growing in a container that is designed to be a fast tracker, or is that the right way to say it? Like it fast tracks your growth, is what I'm saying. With surrounded by people who are also focused on fast tracking their growth. and you enter that, right? And you do it now versus you do it later or sometime down the road or 2 years from now or when it's the perfect time or when it feels right or I don't know, I'm so scared, right? It's like there's going to be a really big advantage to jumping in to feet first, right? And just going for it and allowing yourself to make that scary decision in your business, a risky decision in your business, which is a really powerful decision to make. So at this point, I had had some conversations. I'd gotten a couple of no's. And then I chatted with somebody the week after who was a yes. So now I had two people. And then I ended up chatting with another student. So I had three people. I had a couple of other calls, I think 3 or 4 other calls throughout this week that also just didn't pan out. So I'd gotten a couple more no's, but I had gotten a couple more yeses. So I was like, okay, this is great. So the way the process kind of goes is like, I'm not just, I'm opening the applications for a week, but that's just the applications. I still jump on sales calls with every person unless they decide, like, hey, I'm just in. I don't need to talk to you. I'm going to pay in full or I'm going to start the payment plan, which happens a lot as well. But there are there is a number of people who do want to jump on a sales call. They have some questions. They want to chat a little further. And I do make that an option for Magicmind only because it is a container that has requirements and is a little bit more it's a quality container, right? And so I want to make sure I am keeping the quality of this container and who it's for and who it isn't for, so I can really make sure I create and design the best group possible, which you know it is a business container and it is, I do have an income requirement, but for me, it's more so the energy and the commitment, like the energetic commitment, right? I can tell if someone maybe hasn't made like their first, even if they haven't made like 20K this year in their business, right? And they applied. I it's not like an immediate no. I look at, okay, what do they want to create? How committed are they? What is how do they take this how seriously do they take this in their life, in their energy? How do I feel in my body? Right? So that's much more important to me than whether or not they hit the requirement. Um, I had someone join during early enrollment who she didn't hit the requirement, and we had a conversation about it, and I can tell just by what she was saying and just by all the things that she had done in the meantime, to be a part of this round. Like I was like, yeah, you're a great fit, like let's go, right? And now she's part of the next round. So for me, it's really much more about like, how committed are you? How seriously are you ready to like go in energetically and make this decision versus this is the amount of money that you've made, which sometimes can tell certain things about a business owner. But the way I like to feel into it is very intuitively. And this is who I want to this is what I want to do. This is what I want to this is what I want to feel into is my body sensations and listening to my body when I make decisions in my business, right? That's really important to me. Okay. So at this point, I had a goal of 10, by the way. I had a goal of 10 people in this mastermind. And so far, I believe I had two people who had paid, another person who said yes, and she was about to pay. And then I was like, okay, what can I do? What are some things that I can do? I had a couple other calls on the calendar. I kind of had calls throughout the next week and the week after. But I knew like once applications are done, I mean, that's it. If those people don't say yes on the call, like I'm gonna end up with a mastermind that has like 3 people, right? And I think I think my one-on-one student who was transitioning into Magicmind was still making a decision. And I did have a requirement on like you have 48 hours to submit your first payment just so we could kind of move it along. But because she was from one-on-one and it's not like she had necessarily put in her application, it was more of a conversation we were having a little bit more casually. but also seriously, right? About, hey, do you want to be a part of this mastermind? I think it would be a really good fit for you. I was essentially selling her on being in the mastermind because we had worked together one on one. And like I mentioned earlier, I wanted to kind of diffuse my one on ones. Anyway, so she was still making her decision. Everyone else that I had talked to was either a yes and had paid or a couple of no's, right? And then I had a call with someone who was in the previous round and was thinking about joining this round or the round afterwards. And so we got on a call and she had a couple things that she, wanted to talk about. So we talked about that. I jumped on another call with someone who was an absolute yes. And she just was essentially waiting for, the funds to kind of come in. And so yeah, I learned a lot in this process about like the people who I think are a really great fit, how to speak to them, how to draw them in my frequency, and then also realizing that like, sometimes it really is just a money issue, right? Sometimes I like to say like, oh, well, if they're really in it, they're going to find the way no matter what. And sometimes I really think that it is just like there are other priorities that they're prioritizing at this time, and that's okay, right? It's not my business to be in their wallet and help them make their money decisions for them. Um, and so that's where the surrender piece comes in. You kind of have to just surrender when some people are like, yeah, I don't know. I have to think about this. I have to think about that. And I just like to remind them, like, you're going to make the best decision for you. I trust you. Okay. I trust you and I'm gonna release you, right? And so it's literally sometimes like an energetic release where sometimes I can get really caught up in like, oh my god, I'm so excited to work with this person and they're such a dream client, and oh my gosh, it would be amazing for them to be in this container. I can already see them being friends with this person and they would get along so well with that person, and the peer coaching with this other person would just be incredible, right? And I can like just start seeing like how they would just be such an amazing person to work with, and I can see all the ways in which I can help them in their business based on what they've shared with me. And I just get so excited, so wrapped up, and so like, oh my God, I really want them in this container. And then, when it comes to a certain point and they're making a decision, on is this the right fit for me at this time, prioritizing my this round, prioritizing being a part of this round and making this investment, I kind of have to leave that up to them at a certain point. And I think that sometimes releasing that gives them the freedom to make a really powerful decision, right? And most of the times that I've done that recently with a sales call with someone who wanted to join BAA. And when we left the call, she was still kind of undecided. I don't force anyone to make a decision on the call. It's just not how I want to run my business. And it's not how I don't like that on sales calls. I personally don't like that. So I like to sell the way that I like to be sold to. So I was like, look, you're going to make the best decision for you. And I'm here. I would love to work with you. And I'm going to let you make this decision and you let me know. Okay. And she was like, okay, thank you. Thank you. We left the call. And then a couple days later, she's like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to find a way to do it. I'm going to take out a business loan. I'm going to do this. I would never ask my students. Like, again, I don't think it's my business. But she was just telling me, right? And she was like, I'm gonna make it work. I can make it work and I'm going to make it work. Right. And I was like, amazing. I can't wait to have you. So I think there's a lot to say too about the way that I've also learned over the years, not just through this launch, but definitely through this launch, of like really, really surrendering and like, oh, I just want this perfect kind of curated group of like, I thought this person who was like all in, even months in advance, was like, I'm gonna be in this round. Reach out to her. No, not gonna be in this round. Another person who said, yeah, I can't wait to be in this round. I couldn't have made it last round, but I'm definitely going to be in your next round. And I can't wait. Reach out to them. Didn't see their application come through. Not going to be in this round. Right. So we really, as business owners, have to like, and it's hard to detach those emotions, especially when these are connections that I've made. Like we talk in the DMs. Like I respond to every single one of my DMs. I don't have to do this, but I do. I love it. I love it, right? I don't want to hand that piece off of my business to anyone else. I think that connection, and I have conversations, like some of my clients like will tell me that they had dreams about me. And like me, them, and Alaska were like on an adventure, right? Maria, I'm looking at you. And then, sometimes it's not even my clients and they just update me and they're like, Tiffany, this is what's going on in my life right now, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're such an inspiration. Like, oh my gosh, I wish we lived closer, all these things. And then, they'll update me when they have their money wins and things like that. And yeah, I have so many connections and conversations that I hold with people. So, when they tell me that they're going to join, or they tell me that they're planning to be in this next round, like, I also get excited as well. So I've really learned to, hold space for the joy and excitement when they share those things with me. Not because I think that, like, you know, not because I think that they're not being truthful, but I also recognize that sometimes things just they happen, right? And it's not my doing and it's not their doing. It's just it might not be an aligned fit at this specific time. And so I do have to create a level of like release and surrender, which has been hard because these are our like heart-centered, soul-aligned businesses. It's not like I'm just selling products I don't care about, right? Like if I worked at like Target or something and someone was like, nah, yeah, I'm not going to get this toothpaste. I'm not going to get that toy for my kid. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, fine. That's okay, right? Like no attachment whatsoever, but this is my soul's work. This is my soul's expression. It's kind of like I'm like pouring my heart out, working so hard to create the launch and all the money that goes into the launch. And if I'm running ads, that's like thousands of dollars, right? And then it's like everything I do to create the curriculum and hold the energy and hold the space. And sometimes it's like literally like you putting your heart out there and going like, hi, do you want a piece of this? And do you want to be a part of this? No? Okay. So it can feel, and I think because I'm such a highly sensitive empath, I don't want to ever get to a place where like it doesn't hurt necessarily, because I'm a human and I care so much about my human connections and my human clients. And this is such a human business. So I think that's part of it. So if you're feeling that way and you're shaming yourself for it, or you're, just like upset at yourself for being upset, it's like, I think it's just a part of being a loving business owner who cares so deeply, right? I'm always going to be a little upset when someone's like, "Oh no, I can't make it this round." I'm like, "Oh man, I was really looking forward to having you, but that's okay." Right? No resentment. I completely understand. I've also made similar decisions in my business. And I also like to invest in the way that I like my clients to invest in me, right? So anytime I've ever reached out to a coach, which has been very rare, I typically don't for whatever reason. I just don't feel like I need to. Like I feel like I get everything I need from like binging their content and binging their podcast, or whatever I need to do to kind of get to know them a little bit better, get a feel for their style. But the few times I have, and I'm like, I'm gonna join, I do join, right? I always like to keep my word in that way, unless for some reason, like there was really something that came up, then, of course I would honor that. But each time I've reached out to a coach and I was like, hey, I'm really gonna join, like I feel so aligned, right? Um, it's already at that point where I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Like, I don't ever want to create like tons of open loops with people energetically. This is just personally for me, right? I never want to create like a bunch of open loops and then like never follow up, or just not answer them, just kind of leave them on red. Um, just because I know how that feels. And most of the times when I've invested, like the mastermind I'm in right now, which was $25,000, and the mastermind I was in before with another coach, $20,000. I hadn't spoken to either coach once. The coach that I'm in her mastermind right now, I wasn't even following her on Instagram. I had never had a conversation, never spoken, didn't know who I was, literally just applied, paid in full, right? And yeah, I did that 20K and another 20K with one coach, and then she stopped running masterminds. And then I did that with a different coach for 25K. And in total in my business, I've spent well over six figures in investments and mentors. So I've learned a lot about how I invest and a lot about how I desire people to invest in me. And it really helps, when you're a service provider, when you're a client and you're a coach, you get to see how your behavior looks when you're investing, and then also how people invest in you, and how you can create a more smooth, exciting, build up that frequency, because that's really important. Like how do you want people to feel when they're buying? I always get really excited when I pay my coaches. Right. I always love that edge. Like if it was too easy, I would just be like, oh, I probably wouldn't even show up to the calls if it was like a couple $100 or even like couple $1,000, like, but $20,000. I'm like, wow, that's an edge. That is an edge. I used to make 30K in a year, you know? I used to make 30K in 1 year. I was so broke. My bank account was always in the negatives. I always tell the story of when I went into the bank and I begged them to waive my overdraft fee because I didn't have enough money. Obviously, it was overdraft. I had no money to pay the $35. And I still remember that because I was like, man, I really don't have this money. And I need to put food on the table for my newborn baby. You know, like I remember breastfeeding her for 2 years, not because I wanted to, my boobs will never be the same. Definitely like grieving, a lot of grieving, if you're a mom, of old identity. Um, but I didn't have food. I didn't have money for food even for myself. So breastfeeding her was really great because I was able to feed her from my own body, which was also a really beautiful bond that I feel like I had with her. Not to say that if you don't breastfeed, you don't have the same bond, but it was like when I did breastfeed her, it was like only something I could do, which I hated and loved at the same time. And it really taught me to like build a bond, which was like, this is a whole other episode, but it was really hard for me to do that in the beginning because I had postpartum depression. I didn't immediately have a bond with my daughter the way that you think you do in Hallmark movies when they place the baby on your chest and you just expect that the rainbows are just gonna, you know, come out of the sky. It's not like that. It's not like that at all. All right. So that's kind of where I was. And then I was thinking about, okay, I really want my goal of 10, and I still would love 10 people in this mastermind. So I was like, okay, well, what can I do? Right. So I processed all my emotions. I cried on the couch, I wrote, I journaled, I was angry, I was upset, I was frustrated, not at anyone in particular, of course, just kind of at the situation. Like, oh, I had thoughts of like, shouldn't I be further along by now? Shouldn't I have had this figured out by now? Shouldn't I? Right. I like should it all over myself. And yeah, it was just like it was for me, it felt kind of devastating. It felt like, oh, man, I really, really desired this, and I thought it would come as easily as it did in the past couple rounds. And what had happened in the past two rounds was it was so easy to sell my spots. So easy. It felt easy, right? It felt easy because there were things that I was doing that I didn't do this round. When I first launched Magicmind, I filled it with 8 students. And then the second round, I had 6 students. And that had like already kind of exceeded like my expectations. So this round going into it, I think one of the biggest things that I did was I had a lot of sales entitlement. I just felt like I was entitled to the sales, right? And this happens in our business when we launch things over and over again and we have certain levels of success. I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm easily just going to get like 10, like, my goal was 10 and I had never had 10 before, but I just figured, right? If we're just looking at it logically and I've had X many people in previous rounds, like shouldn't it be pretty easy for me to have 10 people this round, effortlessly? And what I did while being in that energy of like, they're already sold. They're already sold on it, right? Which can be a really great thought of like, hey, my people already want this. They desire it so much. They're so in, it's crazy, right? But then there's an edge to that. There's like a shadow of that where it is like, oh, they're already sold. Don't have to do anything. All right, gonna kick back and kick my legs up on this couch. I'm just gonna chill, right? Like there is a level of intentionality and explicitness and frequency that we need to drop into in order to still sell. And it's just interesting because, of course, duh, like, duh, Tiffany, duh, like, what the fuck were you thinking? But it's just so common that we create and we create and we create, right? And like the first year of my business was like this crazy multi six figure year. I just like had no idea I could even create that. I was like blowing my own mind. And I'd worked so hard for that, I really did. I worked so hard for that. And over time, I was like, okay, well, shouldn't this just be something that I just have, right? But it's like you don't just have millions; you have to maintain millions, or else, what's going to happen to those millions? The millions they're just going to fade away, right? It's like, yeah, you had a six figure year, but you also have to maintain the six figure year. You have to you have to keep at it. You have to grow at it. It's not just going to be six figures magically again the next year. You're not just going to wake up and just, sleep through every single day and not launch anything. And then at the end of December, go, wait, what happened to my business? I had a six-figure year last year. I thought it was just stabilized. No, you have to do the work to stabilize it. And by you, I mean me. Gosh, it's so important to laugh at yourself and to just, I'm human, I'm human. And it was also, I'll be honest, it was really hard for me to record this episode. This is an edge for me. It took me a really long time because I felt so much shame. I felt so much shame of like so many people look up to me and shouldn't I have this figured out? And oh, I'm just such a failure. And I'm not. So this is me really owning those emotions and allowing myself to feel and process those emotions, which is not an easy thing to do. It is not an easy thing to do. As a business owner, there's so many things that are going to happen in your business that are just going to create an array of emotions. And what is so important beyond anything else that we can do is feel our feelings. That has been one of the biggest lessons that I have learned this year in my business and in my personal life is like deeply, deeply expanding my capacity for uncomfortable emotions. Because let's face it, the most successful entrepreneurs are not having super easy, free days every single day, right? That might be their like, I would say that for the most part, I do feel that in my business. I do feel that, but there are moments in everybody's life and business where something happens that catches you off guard. Something happens that you didn't expect. A client leaves, a launch doesn't go as planned. You don't hit your goals, right? You feel, or you do hit your goals and you don't feel the way you expect it to feel. Sometimes think that's even harder. You hit your goal and you feel lonely, or you hit your goal and you look around and you no one else really can understand because your family doesn't really get it, your friends don't really get it, you know. And then of course, if we're socialized as women, we're socialized to think about other people's emotions. And so if someone's going through a financial hardship and you feel guilty sharing your money wins, right? Which is obviously like always celebrate, always brag. It always just calls people up higher, even though it feels like sometimes we're doing something wrong. You know, I was raised to just be super humble and to always just like keep things to myself and just, I published a book and my mom was like, it's nothing. It's nothing. when someone went to congratulate me and said, "Oh, you must be so proud. That's so exciting." My mom said, "It's nothing." I had written a book. I was 16 years old. I'd published it, right? They helped me publish it. And my mom said, "Oh, it's nothing. It's nothing." Got into the car and I cried because I wasn't allowed to celebrate myself. I wasn't allowed to celebrate what I had created. And it took me a really, really long time in my business to learn to celebrate myself. An embarrassingly long time. My friends had to throw me a surprise party when I hit 200K because I didn't celebrate it and I didn't know how to celebrate it. In fact, I didn't even feel happy about it. I felt guilty about it because I was still operating in that struggling, broke, single mom identity. I had to shift that identity. I had to do a lot of work around shifting that identity. A lot of work. I'm still doing that work. She was just such a, it wasn't even that it was a very, very long time in my life. It was just that it was so prevalent. It like seared a hole in my memory of like, I'm broke. I am unlovable. I was in an abusive relationship where my partner was violent and angry towards me. I was a newborn. I had a newborn and I was struggling with postpartum depression. And there was nobody. I was kicked out of my mom's house. I had nobody, right? It was such a monumental part of my life. And so I still sometimes think in that way. Very, very rarely now, but it used to be the way I run my business. So I talked about this in my recent episode on revenue plateauing. And one of the things I shared was like, we're still operating in an old identity, right? So you can't hit 100K if you're still operating in like this old identity of you that thinks becoming rich is going to make you a bad person. You have to shift that in order to step into your six-figure self. And by the way, I am hosting a workshop on January 11th called Expansion, and is to help you move through death and rebirth in your life right now as we move into the new year. So if you're feeling called, if you have some identities that you need to shift, if you need that support moving into the new year, I'll leave that link for you in the show notes. And it'll be a beautiful 2-hour live workshop on Zoom on January 11th together as a container. I'll be sending Reiki. We'll be doing meditations. We'll be setting intentions, casting visions. I'd love to have you. There's also a VIP upgrade for a group coaching intensive for the day afterwards if you'd like some extra eyes on your if you want energetics coaching, if you want business coaching, strategics, mindset, whatever it is. I'm here to hold space for you. And if you need payment plans, there's options there as well, or just DM me. So yeah, another inner child wound that came up was, I was raised by Chinese immigrant parents, and they really valued education. Education was something that came more important than my mental health. And grades, excellence, achievement, always bringing home the best grades, always topping what I had created before was really important in my life as a child growing up. Essentially, it was like the way that I felt worthy and the way I felt love from my parents, which is not healthy. I'm breaking a lot of those cycles with my daughter. And my parents and I have had conversations about this as well. But, they grew up in scarcity and they immigrated to the States with nothing. And my dad made a name for himself through his education and through taking it really seriously. And there are so many other ways of becoming successful now that they are not necessarily as they're not as aware of as we are, right? We grew up in the digital age. So we see the resources laid out in front of us. We see millionaire TikTokers and, people who are making their income from YouTube. And that's the era that we grew up in. So we know there are options. We know they don't. They don't see that. They don't see it as viable. They don't see it as safe. They don't see it as a predictable income. And quite frankly, there is a superiority of going into corporate America than starting your own business. And so when I didn't hit my launch goal, it was this sinking feeling of I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy. It created panic and fear because I felt like I was going to get in trouble, right? And this is not something I even realized. I wasn't aware of this. I didn't know that this was happening in my body. I didn't know this was happening subconsciously, right? It's just crazy how many things link back to childhood. It's just crazy. It's just so crazy. And it's almost scary. It's scary as a parent thinking about that. It's scary how much we are molding our children just by like, and we're human, right? We're gonna fuck it up. Like we're gonna fuck up our kids. I'm already fucking up my kid. Every parent is in their own way. And then at the same time, we also get to be very, very intentional and loving, but also we're also human. We're human, you know? So I realized this inner child wound, this inner child wound of wanting to feel loved and wanting to feel worthy because I brought home good grades, which I never did, by the way. I didn't really bring home great grades. I was never in honors classes. I was never the straight A student. I think I got straight A's once, one year in fifth grade. Um, yeah, I would just, I had ADHD. I didn't know it obviously at the time. Um, and it was really hard for me to take tests. I would get like test panic and test anxiety, and I was just not a good test taker. Like, just didn't do great in school. Failed math tons of times. Actually got kicked out of school because I failed math so bad. And yeah, it was just so many childhood wounds of like, I'm not good enough, right? Replaying this narrative that I'm not good enough. I'm not hitting my goals. I'm not getting the good enough grades. I like my sister would always get really, really great grades and effortlessly, right? And I would try so hard and I would study so as much as my brain would allow me. And then I would get to the test and forget everything. I just couldn't take tests. I didn't remember anything, but I knew it all. I knew it. I could write an essay on it, right? I was really great at writing. I was really, really good at writing, but taking tests, math, science, anything else, essentially, I wasn't good at. And, there's a lot to say about the education system being really flawed, and I'm not going to get into that right now. But it dug at this wound, just dug at this wound, and I just felt so inadequate. And I was held in a visualization with my inner child where I held her and I told her that she's okay and she's loved and she's cared for, regardless of what happens in my business. See, this is what happens is if we're not careful, we let our wounded inner child, our wounded inner teenager run our business. And this was such a big breakthrough for me to not feel like I needed to be this like picture perfect success, role model that had all this pressure on my back to do well. Even me recording this episode and sharing all of this is a big breakthrough for me. That I get to be human, that my students get to learn from me because I'm a human coach, not because I'm a perfect coach, not because I'm a perfect business owner, right? And that's why they love me, is because I get to share these things very transparently and honestly. And honestly, if someone is listening to this and they think less of me, that's not someone that I desire to work with anyway. My best clients will look at this and go, wow, thank you for sharing this. I needed to hear this, right? And please do send me a DM if this is something that's resonating with you, if this is something that's helpful for you. I'd love to hear from you. I build so many amazing connections in the DMs with listeners for my podcast and those who connect with me in my Instagram community. And it means so much to me. So thank you. And thank you for listening. So what I also realized I did that I could have done differently was I did a month-long event, right? And it wasn't that a month-long event is bad or wrong. I think it actually went really well. And people still tell me like, oh my gosh, that event was amazing. I think I did a great job. And I think that everyone who joined got a lot out of it. But I think what I did specifically here was because it was a month long, because it was a month long, and match that with they're already sold. I was in this done energy of like, it's done, not in like a empowering, like, oh, it's done. I believe it. My clients are here. Like, it was like, oh, it's done. I don't have to do much about it. Right. Like, of course I sold. Of course I showed up to create content. Of course I showed up to give value. But because it was a month long, I didn't really take the time to like explicitly go into the details of the mastermind. I remember some calls where like I barely talked about the mastermind at the end of it. And I just like assumed like they knew they're part of this group. I'm posting it in the group. They get my emails. I was like, well, they already know, you know? And it was, again, it was subconscious. I wasn't doing this on purpose. I wasn't doing this like, I don't have to talk about it. Like, no, I was just like, oh, they know, they know. Okay, okay. So now we can like end the call, right? Like it's all good. And then I would keep checking the applications and, it would be like very, very few applications, much fewer than the past few rounds. And I was so confused for a while. I was like, what is happening? What is happening here? I also expected there to be, re-signs, and I expected people to just show up and find the application link, right? And yeah, so there is something to say about like really being explicit and really being like taking up the space, right? Because I did a month-long event, I feel like it helped me to forget because it was like a whole 30 days, right? And because of that, I feel like I did less selling because I felt like I needed to do less selling because I feel like they're already sold. That's such a thought error, by the way. It's such a thought error to think that they're already sold. And so my new thought was like, okay, they might not be all completely sold, but I know how to sell to them, you know? And you're there sometimes like the student that had paid in full months before I even opened up applications, she was already sold. She was really already sold. I didn't have to market. I didn't even start marketing. And she'd message me and said, hey, I want to be in this round. Here's my money. Take it. Let's go. Every single round, I've had people secure their spots with me that way. Every single round, including the round that we're about to move into next, I already have someone who's paid. So, yeah, that's beautiful. And I love that. I love that. I love that. I love it so much. But not all my students are like that. There's going to be a group of students who are like, yep, sold in, done, take my money, let's go. I'm there. I ticket is booked for the live event. Done. Done, 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 done. Signed, sealed, delivered. Okay. And I love that. There are also students who just need to be sold to a little bit more. I love those students too. And sometimes I am that student. Sometimes I need to be sold to a little bit more. And I need to see things multiple times before I jump in. That's okay. It's not a bad thing. It's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just this person hasn't made their decision and they just need a little bit more time. They need a little bit more information. Sometimes they're a little bit more of like an analytical person who wants to see all the details laid out, right? Like, here are the calls, here are the, here's what you get, here's the Slack channel, blah, 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 right? Sometimes they need to see, I'm that person, by the way. I love to feel into it and feel into the energetics, and I love to see things laid out. Here are all the things that you get, right? So what I was doing was I was essentially marketing to all the people in that first bucket of like sold, done. But not everyone was fully sold yet. Some people needed to hear me talk about it more. Sure, maybe they knew I had a mastermind. Sure, maybe they knew that it was 6 months and the name was Magicmind and applications were opening, but maybe they weren't sold on why it was for them. Right. And sometimes I see this in my students and I'll call them out. And sometimes I see it just on Instagram when people talk about their offers and they just talk about like they either just talk about the details or like they just talk about like certain aspects, but they don't talk about like, here's who you become in this container, here's what we create in this container, here's what you will walk away with, here's who you'll be. And even me, 3 years into my business, I've done so many launches. I've run I feel like I've run this mastermind way longer than I have, but I at that point I had run it 2 times. A third time, now we're going into the 4th round. in May 2024, which, by the way, enrollment dates for the next round of Magicmind is coming up in February 2024. So make sure you mark your calendar for that. Join the waitlist in the show notes. And yeah, I just, there was a lot of thought errors on my part of like, it's already done, people already know. So I learned a lot about selling just through that, right? I still have to actively show up and sell, right? It's like the analogy of like, you can't eat so much food that you never get hungry again. It's not like you can, go to the bathroom like long enough to where you never have to use the bathroom again, or that you like breathe in as much air in one time that you never have to breathe again. It's maintenance. You have to keep eating to stay alive. You have to keep drinking water. You have to keep breathing. You have to keep using the bathroom. You have to keep sleeping. You can't sleep so long that it energizes you for the rest of your life. It doesn't work like that, right? You can't work out so hard one time and just go, oh, got the body I want. I'm done. Got the butt I want. I'm good, baby. No, it doesn't work like that, right? You got to keep going to the gym, right? You have the body you want. You got to maintain it, right? It's the same thing with sales. It's the same thing with sales. And it's just funny that sometimes we have to learn these lessons in order to really drill it into our brains. You know, it's just funny. Like I get to just kind of laugh at it like, oh, like, duh, dude. What were you thinking? Of course. Of course. Right. And yeah, it's just at a certain point, you just kind of have to look at it and be like, okay, I'm so grateful for this lesson. I'm so grateful that I learned all of this in the way that I learned it, because now I get to move forward in my business as a completely different business owner. So powerful. That is so powerful. I also realized that because I joined a mastermind, I'm currently still in it. There were certain ways of like writing copy that was taught, and certain ways of writing copy based on just based on specific processes from the coach, right? And I can see now, like looking back, right? And when I did this evaluation, I can see how I looked at some of these processes and looked at some of these ways of doing business and just made some of the ways that I did things wrong. Have you ever done this where you've joined a container and you listen to a coach's teachings or their process or something that they've created or something that they really stand by, and then you make yourself wrong, right? Even if you've made money in your business, sometimes this is why like some students will make money and then they go into a mastermind and they like stop making money, right? Because it's like they make all the ways that they've done things wrong. So I was kind of doing that a little bit to myself. I was kind of shitting on myself a little bit. I was looking at like this very successful, like 8-figure coach, and I was like, oh, is the way I've done things wrong? Right. And again, this happened very subconsciously. I wasn't actively like, oh, gotta go and rechange everything I did and make it more like this. Like it wasn't a conscious thing. It was more like, okay, the more I like kind of submerged myself, the more I didn't catch myself in thinking like, oh, this okay, the way I've done things is because I was in my frequency. And the way that this has worked really well for this coach is because she was in her frequency. But I can't try to show up like her frequency and she can't show up like my frequency. I have my own frequency, right? So something I did during this launch was like I felt like I tried to show up like someone who wasn't me. And I just looking back, it was like it was very subtle, nothing that I did was completely dramatically different, not even to a point where maybe people could even tell. Maybe some people could, but it was just kind of like my thoughts, my energy, right? It was a little bit different. It wasn't as like grounded in like how I normally do things, because I had this thought of like, oh, there is a different way of writing copy. There's a different way of maybe sending emails. Maybe there's a different way of launching that I should do differently, right? And I think sometimes we take what experts and coaches say, and it's like expert washing, right? Like we essentially take their words as more valuable than our own. We take their advice as more valuable than our own. And this is something I'm really adamant about in Magic Mind. I literally tell my students, hey, if something I say does not sit right with you, if it is not the coaching that feels aligned to you, tell me. My coaching should only ever empower you and help you and make things easier for you. Maybe not always necessarily. Sometimes there are some like harder truths and blind spots that my students aren't seeing that don't necessarily feel good to hear, but it's because I'm your coach. I'm going to tell you. But that's different between like, oh gosh, yes, okay, you're right. Yeah, I do need to do that. I'm definitely playing small. Okay, like, oh yeah, I can see how I didn't do that because of this. Thank you. Versus like a coach telling you something like, no, you need to stop doing this and you need to do that instead. And it doesn't sit right in your body. And you're like, oh, but wait, what? I don't, oh, that doesn't, I'm not sure. Right. And with that said, I'm a very coachable person. I'm a very coachable person. And I always think like, okay, why is my coach saying that to me? There's got to be a reason. There has to be a reason. They see something that I don't. And I'll always go out of my way to just like be coachable and try something new. Right. But there's also the line, and it is a fine line of listening to your intuition and consulting with the spirit of your business over a coach or a mentor or a peer or someone else in that space, right? So that's something that you really want to root down into is like, what is my conviction here? What do I feel convicted to do here? And how can I really honor that? How can I really honor that over like what someone else is saying? I think that's really important to listen to. So, something else I did at this point was I decided to do a relaunch. I decided to just completely relaunch the mastermind. And I gave myself permission to do this because I saw other people do it as well. And I got over all of the thoughts of like, oh my gosh, I just launched. People are going to know. People are going to think I failed. People are going to think that I have zero people, which isn't true. But at the end of the day, it was like, you know what? Who cares? Who cares? Even if I had zero people and I decided to relaunch, who fucking cares? So I put all of that aside. I put my pride aside. I put my ego aside. I said, I'm going to fill up the rest of these spots and I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do it. Right. And what I also offered was free coaching sessions just for fun. I just opened them up on my stories and to my people, and people booked them. And all of a sudden, I had like two people that didn't apply, did not ever talk to me before about Magicmind, not like didn't have a conversation. Two separate people reached out and said, hey, are you still filling up spots for your mastermind? Can we talk? I think I'm a good fit for this. And I'm like, fuck yeah, like let's go. Like, let's go. Yes. Right. So we scheduled calls and both of those people were a yes. Um, and then I also got on, a couple of coaching calls with people, and talked about Magic Mind, if they were a good fit. Some of them just weren't. Some of them just were not good fits. And so I just, yeah, that didn't necessarily happen. But I got on calls with people and some people reached out. And I ended up with 7 people in my mastermind. At one point, after applications, before I jumped on sales calls, I was thinking there would be one person in this round, right? I think I was also being a little dramatic, but also, those are my thoughts at the time. I was like, oh my gosh, is there just going to be this one person who applied early? Um, and this was before I had conversations with some of the other people who had applied. And I had like 2 sales calls during launch week of people who said no. And I was like, what if those other people end up being no? This was before I did the relaunch. So I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do if it is just one person? And so I decided what I would do if it was just that one person, right? I made a decision. I was like, okay, this is what I'll do. And it'll be fine. It'll be okay. It's all right. It's not a problem, you know? And then someone even reached out and was like, why did you relaunch? Like, what happened there? And I, and then for a moment, I felt like some shame, like, oh God, I, I felt the shame, like, oh, I didn't do it right the first time. And anyway, I just responded. I said, I just want to fill up more spots. There's just a couple of spots open. I just want to fill them up. And she was like, wow, that's amazing. That's so cool. So I just think it gives us so much permission because we put so much into these like minuscule, not minuscule, but like we get so zoomed in on these launches. And when we look back in our business, right? Like when I'm making $1 million a year, I'm not going to look back and be like, oh, gosh, that one time that I didn't hit my goal. I'm not going to do that, right? I'm going to be like, I'm so glad I learned who I needed to become through the times I fell on my face and cried and felt discouraged and felt like a failure and felt shame and felt like I should be further along and felt like I should have this figured out by now. And I got back up and I got back up and I got back up and I keep getting back up. And every single time it triggers an inner child wound and the inner teenager wound and my inner child who wants to please her parents and who wants to be worthy and wants to be loved and wants to be recognized, and the little girl that didn't have attention from her dad who was always working and was a workaholic and found it in men over and over and over from a very young age and seeks validation and reassurance, and her and that version of me that was in a volatile relationship, and the broke struggling single mom that was trying to provide for her newborn, all those past versions of me, all of those younger versions of me. I get to love them all. I get to love all of them. I imagine them all looking up at me, smiling, proud of me. And I get to hold space for them. And I also get to not let them run my business, right? In Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic, which I highly, highly, highly recommend, by the way. She says, your business is not your baby. It is your steamy love affair, right? If you've ever seen movies or, known someone who had been in an affair, it's like you find time for that somehow. You don't have time for it. You have work, you have kids, but you find time to, because you're so wrapped up in it. You love it. You love it so much. You're so caught up in it. Right. So I I opened up consults to BAA, which is my lower ticket program. I sold to them. I had over 15 consults booked for the relaunch. When I did decide to relaunch, at that point, I had um, two people who were a yes, and then eventually the people who I'd spoken to, either previous or coming into it, were yeses as well. Or I think I had some yeses, but like either they hadn't paid or either they were still making a decision. It's all kind of like blurring. I can't remember every single conversation I had with every person, but yeah, but then 7 people with several, I ended up with 7 in my container. So I still didn't hit my goal, but I'm so proud of the way that I relaunched and put myself out there. Like imagine if I was like, oh, this is it. I'm a failure. I didn't get what I wanted. I'm gonna have a 2-person mastermind. Like, what's gonna happen? Right? All those things. Like, I decided to put myself out there and send emails to a list that I literally just told them, hey, this is the last day to apply. This is the last chance to be in this round. And then all of a sudden, I had a new due date. I had a new deadline. I opened up a whole new week of applications and I did it all over again. And to the same list who was probably like, what is happening? I didn't send an entire email saying, oh my gosh, everyone, like I'm relaunching. So sorry if you get these emails. No, I was like, here are the fucking emails. Here is the new deadline to apply. Here's why you need to be in this round, and you're welcome for me opening up uh a few more days to apply and to be a part of this round with me because you don't want to miss out on this. It was very unapologetic. It was very like, here I am. Come and join us. Why aren't you here yet? Let's go. Let's do this together. And imagine if I had been in that apologetic, mousy energy of like, oh, hi, everyone. I know I just sent some emails for the launch, but I'm going to send some more. And yeah, now we have a new date. And, it's just because I really want to. No, I didn't explain myself at all. If you're on my list and you saw those emails, like, I did not explain anything. I just said, I didn't even say, here's the new I said, we're in launch. Here's when you can apply by. Here's the application. Here's why you want to be a part of this round. The end. That's what I did. And I could have only done that after processing my emotions and being shriveled up on the couch in the fetal position, crying, screaming, journaling, crying again, feeling shitty, feeling like a failure, feeling shame, feeling like I'm a bad coach, and especially like the pressure of being a business coach, right? But the reason that I learned these lessons as a business coach is to teach my students. I am a completely different coach than when I first went into that launch. The way I coach is different. The way I show up in the container is different. There's something about it. There's something about learning these powerful lessons that they just shift you. They just shift you. If you let them, they will shift you. If you let them, they will transform your entire reality and your entire business trajectory. And that is where I am now. I ended up with 7 students with a 70K launch. These are a dream. These are dream students. There were people that were reaching out to me just because I stepped into this unapologetic frequency, my magnetism, my unique magic. I stepped into that. And some people didn't even see the emails, didn't even apply. They weren't even watching my stories. I didn't even see them watch my stories. Or maybe they did and I missed it, right? But like and I think some of them were, right? But anyway, there are people just texting me out of the blue, texting me who had my number, friends. These are my friends who are also coaches who had never talked about Magicmind with me before. And then all of a sudden are like, hey, is there still room? One of them asked her friend to join the container with her because they lead retreats together. And her friend joined, talked to me, got on a call. We talked it out, answered her questions. And she was like, let me think about it. 2 days later, hey, I'm in. I'm in. And my mind was blown. My mind was blown because if I just looked at like the applications, I would think no one wants to be a part of this mastermind. But because I looked at it from a different angle of like, I know there are people who want to be in this mastermind. The wait list is so big, right? And I know that there's so many people who signed up for my 10K anyway, month-long event. And beyond that, I'm a match to this container. It means that there are clients who are a match to this container, or else I wouldn't have had the vision for it. When we have a vision for an offer, it doesn't just mean that we are meant to bring it to life. It means that there are people who are meant to experience it as well, right? So I knew those people were out there. It was just a matter of me being in my frequency, not in my coach's frequency, not showing up like someone else, not trying to sound like someone else, not trying to launch like someone else, not trying to just assume it's all done and assume that everyone's already sold, right? It's me being in my frequency and being open and loud and grounded and expressive and taking up space and going, here's the mastermind. Here's what we get to do together. Let's do this together. Here is me in all my glory. Here is the coach that you get to learn from. Here are all the people you get to learn from in this space, right? And it's just been the most amazing round. I can't even, like, it is amazing. It's so good. The results, the the people that my students are becoming in this round. Oh my, I could cry, I could scream, I could run around, I can dance. Like, it's so good. It's so good. And it's just going to get better every single round. Magicmind is just going to get better. And if you're growing to six figures or multi six figures, like, get in here, do yourself a favor, do your business a favor, change the trajectory of your life for your family, for yourself, for the freedom you've always wanted. Join us inside Magicmind. It is an amazing 6-month container for witchy coaches, spirit led service providers who don't just want to fall into one way of doing things, one way of selling, one way of marketing, right? I'm going to teach you to tap into your magnetism, your frequency, hone your magic, and bring your business to life the way you were meant to. Because I don't just work with business owners, I work with people who create movements. I work with people who are so deep in their magic that they can't imagine a life without it. Not just people who want to feed the machine and show up every day like it's a job. No, this is your soul's expression, your soul's fullest expression, your soul's purpose. Those are the people that I want to work with. Those witchy women of color, women entrepreneurs, spirit-led CEOs who listen to their intuition, who want to deepen their relationship with the spirit of their business and create a business that is fully led by them. Tap into their own energetic coding to create money effortlessly. Did you know that there is a way of making money that doesn't have to be grueling hard work and hustle? Did you know that? Because I didn't. I didn't when I first started my business. But when I learned to tap into my frequency, when I learned to tap into my magic and my magnetism, oh my gosh, my entire life changed. That's why I have everything I have right now in my life, in my business, in my reality. This is what I teach you. And we don't just hold space for business, we hold space for emotions. And, we have a couple students in there that struggle with depression. We have students in there that are moms. We have students that are dealing with co-parenting, who've been divorced, who are just all over the world. And we get to come together and shine our light, work our light. That's a beautiful, beautiful place to be. So the wait list for Magicmind is in the show notes, and you can sign up for that. The open official enrollment will happen in February from the 12th to the 16th of February. After 16th, the applications will close and we're moving into the next round that starts in May. The live event's taking place in April here in the Bay Area, and I cannot wait to see you all in person. Can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait. So good. It's going to be so good. Just can't wait to grow with you and add more and more students into the Magicmind container. Yeah. And this is another reason why I'm not so worried about hitting my goals, hitting specific milestones. I've been wanting 6-figure launch for a while. I haven't gotten there yet. And it's I love those things. I love being able to create, challenges for myself and my business, as we all should, right? We should have those things of like, oh, that feels so good. That would feel like an edge. That would feel so good to accomplish, right? But then underneath all of that, I care so deeply about my students. I care so deeply. I care so deeply about them. And I am so much more grounded and rooted into my vision and my movement. So it's okay if I don't hit my goal, because this is not an instant win. This is not a microwavable celebration, right? Like an instant thing. This is the long game. This is the long game. I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life, right? I might not always have like my same offer suite and offers and business plan, but I'm always going to be creating and evolving my movement for women of color to break out of boxes and break out of the systemic systems, the supremacy systems, and be the most unapologetic, self-expressed versions of themselves. That is my movement for the rest of my life, to serve witchy women of color. I will be doing that for the rest of my life. So whether I hit my goal, whether I hit this milestone this year or the next year, or if I don't have a six-figure launch until 3 years from now, I don't care, right? It's not a huge, it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that I move this movement forward. And I work with students, my business owners, who are also serious about moving their movement forward. And that is what we do together inside Magicmind. And I would love to have you in the next round. And if you're not quite ready for Magicmind and you're still connecting with your movement and you're still connecting with your magic and in the early stages of that, and you don't have an offer yet, and you want to learn how to create an offer and price your offer and sell it to your first clients, then Business Activation Academy would be the perfect place for you. BAA is my fundamental course and program, and it teaches you all of the beginnings of starting a business, connecting with your clients, how to talk about your offer, how to articulate your offer, how to build your offer, design it, price it, market it, sell it, everything that you need to get your business off the ground, start making money as a coach or a service provider. All right. The links for BAA, for Magicmind, for the waitlist will all be in the show notes. I'm also doing my workshop on January 11th at 11:11 a.m. Pacific. That is Expansion 2024. And Expansion is going to be a 2-hour live workshop with Reiki and manifestation rituals and helping you set intentions for the new year. It's going to help you shift identities from your old identities and patterns into the new one that you're stepping into in 2024. This is a beautiful, it's very astrologically aligned. It's a beautiful, beautiful workshop we're going to hold together. We already have over 20 people. It's going to be an amazing time together. And if you want to upgrade to that group coaching intensive on that Friday, January 12th, we're going to have a beautiful kind of VIP mini day together, coaching on anything you need before you step into the new year. I'd love to have you. All right. Thank you so much for letting me share. I've learned so much. I've learned so much from this launch, and I've learned so much from this year of 2023. I'm going to do another episode on the things I've learned specifically throughout the entire year, not just from this relaunch and launch. But I learned so much. I'm so grateful. You know, we hate the lessons when we're going through them, but when we look back on them, we could never be the people that we desire to become without them. And this year, I asked for growth. I asked for growth, and I got growth. I got the painful, messy evolution of me and my business. I asked for this. And so I will never go through a lesson and go, oh, I'm so confused. Why is this happening to me? What am I doing wrong? It's out of my control. No. What is this teaching me? Why is this happening for me? What am I learning here that I haven't yet integrated fully yet? This is my lesson. This is what I'm meant to learn. This is what is going to be my golden ticket to the next level. And I'm going to sit down. I'm going to process my emotions. I'm going to learn from this. This is my lesson. This is life school. This is the universe schooling me. And so I will always take that and run with it. And I hope that you do too. Every single time you move through a difficult, challenging lesson, asking yourself, what is the universe teaching you? Because if you do not learn it again, if you do not learn it the first time, it will happen again and again and again and again until you learn it. And I know I don't want to be going in circles with the universe. I don't have time for that. I have a movement to run. That's what I'm here to do. If this episode resonated with you at all, please send me a DM, leave 5 stars. If you're feeling extra generous, leave me a review, write out a review, screenshot it, DM it to me. I'll send you a gift. I'll also thank you. I'll also send you a big thank you. And I love you all so much. Thank you for allowing me to share. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking time to listen to these lessons. You are the type of person who is ready and willing and equipped and designed to lead a movement. And I hope in 2024, we get to work together and bring that to life even deeper, even bigger, even wider. Whether that is in Business Activation Academy, or it's through Magicmind, or we work together one-on-one, or maybe another offer that I create. I'd love to have you. If you ever want to talk about that and you want to move forward in working together and explore what that would look like, just send me a DM. I'll respond and I'll know what to ask you, and we'll voice note it. And I cannot wait to get to know you better. And if you haven't already introduced yourself to me, please do so. I love chatting with you all in the DMs. And I'm wishing you all a beautiful, happy new year. I love you all so, so much. And I will catch you in the next episode. All right. Love you. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe. If this episode resonated with you, please take a screenshot, share it on your Instagram stories, and tag me at tiffanychung.co. I truly appreciate interacting with every one of you. Catch you all on the next one.